Hello, everyone, and welcome to By Design with Dr. Erika, a show focused on highlighting amazing women who are stepping out of the box, saying screw the expectations of society, and essentially living life on their own terms and living the life that they were designed to live. Today on our show, I am joined by Veronica Armstrong. Veronica is the CEO of Ilden Shore. Did I do that justice, Veronica? The name?
Perfect. It was perfect.
The CEO of Ilden Shore, a bee-powered hive-to-home fragrance company. Veronica is also the former head of customer happiness and general manager at Lovepop. And Veronica is no stranger to creating magical experiences for customers by conceptualizing unforgettable products and delivering exceptional service. Like many of our guests, Veronica has an interesting story and an interesting journey as to how she reached this stage of her career. And that's why I'm so super excited to have you here today, Veronica. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah. So I have to start off by saying congratulations. It may be a little bit late, but I haven't talked to you since this happened. So congratulations on the Roxbury pitch night and place.
Oh, thank you.
Yes.
Oh, doesn't that seem like a lifetime ago?
I know. Yes. Yes, that's one thing. And congratulations on the collaboration with the incubator. I saw that.
Thank you
Yes.
so much.
Yeah.
It's been I mean, like everybody else, so much has been jam-packed into 2020 that we almost forget to just pause and reflect on all this really amazing stuff. I'm really thankful.
Yeah, that's awesome stuff. Awesome. So I want to jump right in, Veronica, and I want you to take me back to little Veronica. And I'm wondering, what did little Veronica want to be when she grew up?
Oh my goodness. So first, I want to tell everybody, Dr. Erika knows I may or may not have COVID. I'm awaiting the test results, but
no COVID, no COVID.
Please bear with my voice. I'm just so excited to be here. I didn't want to postpone. So I was a really quiet child. I was very shy, and I always suspect, I'm like waiting for my dad to listen to one of the podcasts and either admit or deny this, but I always suspect that because I was the first, he really was hoping for a boy.
I don't think second, and he was hoping for a boy. So
yeah. Well, he wasn't disappointed. I never got the sense that like he was disappointed. It was just the way that, so for example, like I have a memory of him coming home from work and bringing me home like a toy car, like almost every day.
Oh,
which is like totally fine, but I don't remember being like, I'm totally in the cars.
Right.
We used to fish together. We used to watch boxing, just like, and again, you can totally do that with a daughter, but it was only me. He did it. I don't know. Anyway, so I was into that, like remote control cars and just, boy stuff. Mm-hmm. But I was just a really serious child, quiet, introspective, and I was convinced that I was going to be a lawyer or go to the Marines and then be a lawyer. And I think one has to consider what shapes those beliefs and dreams and occupations. And I'm a first generation American.
Okay.
And so a lot of times when we think about who's made it, that's what we see, right? We're like, oh, the lawyers and the doctors and things. And that's not to say those aren't like totally amazing professions. They are. It's just that I think that is to us, like, the most you can do when you're dreaming, when you kind of have that limited worldview as a child. But that's what I thought I would be doing.
Wow. So you said first generation American. So where is your family from?
My family's from the Dominican Republic. They both immigrated here fairly young, so they've been here a long time. But my dad really wanted me to maintain my connection to the Dominican culture, and so did not speak any English in the home. I didn't learn English till I was about 8 years old. So I feel it's been a long time since I've been back to the Dominican Republic, which is the worst. But I just feel so connected to my Dominican and greater Caribbean community. So I'm really thankful he was like really strict about that.
Right. That's amazing. I love the Dominican Republic. That was where we honeymooned at, and it was
nice.
Beautiful, beautiful. So, okay, so you want to be a lawyer when you were growing up. So now walk us through how you went from I'm the first one, I want to be a lawyer, to kind of, how did that evolve? Because obviously you're not a lawyer right now. So what kind of happened between then and now?
I know. I still wonder if I'll end up as one. So I mean, I think this is probably like things I should maybe unpack in like therapy when I have no idea, but I think a lot of what I wanted to do was shaped again by approval, probably from my dad, who's, who's really influential in my life. Um, but I remembered going to the Massachusetts State House as a child on a field trip. And I distinctly remember where I was standing and I said to myself, I'm going to work here someday. Like, this is where I'm going. And when I was 18 years old, I was offered the opportunity to work as a legislative aide at the Massachusetts House of Representatives, the same building, the Massachusetts State House. So when you think about it, it was only like 11 years later. You know what I mean? Like, I kind of put that out into the world, that intention as a child. And so I started my career much younger than most people, and by accident, but that was actually like my dream job at that time, right? Really cared deeply about community activism, politics. So my dad was a community activist, and I often accompanied him to protests or city council meetings, like you name it. And I was like there with my dad. So it really shaped a lot of, I guess my aspirations, but at the same time, I really, really love where I'm from. So I'm from a community about 30 miles north of Boston that is 70% Latino. It's really poor place, but it is a really rich and beautiful place, now full of all sorts of other nationalities and ethnicities. A lot of immigrants pass through there, but my passion really came from serving that community. So I got to the State House and did what I used to always do, which was like, you follow the formula. Right. To do this job, I'm going to finish my undergrad degree. I was the vice president of the Pre-Law Association for a little while. I'll become a lawyer, probably run for office. Then I'll be a lobbyist, and that's it. That's what I'm going to do.
Okay.
And it was like ordained, because my dad became an elected official and things.
Uh-oh.
Apologies. There's going to be a spicy video for you.
Okay.
That was an accident. But yeah, it was, I had a tremendous opportunity. So it wasn't necessarily like shaped by these moonshot type things, when I try to reflect on it. And because the story is really interesting to a lot of people, and I enjoy sharing it because I think young people women especially, put so much pressure at the beginning and like the later stages of their careers, those bookends. Where in the early stages, they're like, I need to have it all figured out. I need to know exactly what I want to do. And then as we get older, I feel like we put this other crazy pressure on ourselves to fulfill this like insane superwoman image that we think people have of us, right? So I try to share my story so people know, like, there was no master plan.
Right.
I'll keep it real. There was no master plan. I just followed my passion, where I had mentorship, which was my father, and the ability to sort of watch him serve the community and turn that into a career. And so that's really how I got my start.
Gotcha. Okay. And you, in that story, you mentioned sort of that formula, like, you go to school, you get the degree, you get that job. And it seems like you kind of broke away from that formula. How did you manage to do that and I guess accept that, to your point, there is no true formula?
You have to be a really strong person, and that's not to say like I'm the strongest person in the world. It's a tough road to navigate. Often being the only Black person in the room, the only non-native English speaker, which people would be like, well, you've been speaking English forever, it's not a big deal. It actually still there's still differences, I feel like, in the way we communicate and mannerisms and things like that. It's just feeling very much like an outlier, and you have to learn to be comfortable with that. And you have to learn to dig in and find the superpowers that gives you. And so the superpowers that I got from having like an economically disadvantaged background, or like whatever term you want to use, is I'm just a hustler, and I can outwork pretty much anybody. Like, you could have gotten your MBA at Harvard, could have gotten it at Booth, you get it at Wharton, it doesn't matter. It's like highly unlikely that you can outwork me. Some people can match me, but that was just kind of my thing, is I have thick skin, and I knew that I would be looked over for opportunities over and over again because of a lack of pedigree, not having a linear story, being younger, I'm sure later it'll be because I'm older, whatever it may be. I just know, right? So just really being honest with myself and fighting for the opportunities that I felt I deserved and was really capable of excelling at. But it's not for the faint-hearted. I wouldn't recommend it. I think if you find yourself in that position, there's no reason to look at it as a negative thing. But I think anytime that you can finish your degree on the traditional cycle, do it. Things like that. But yeah, no, ultimately I made it work for me because there was no other choice.
Right. Gotcha. And even, for me, like I totally resonate with sort of being the only minority in the room because in working in big pharma, it's not a lot of minorities in general that are in there, especially African American women and to a lesser degree African American men. So it's always, you're always trying to sort of prove yourself sometimes or prove that you belong or make sure that you are doing everything you can to be on top. So having that thick skin, having that hustle mentality definitely helps, Oh, I can't hear you.
Like you've got to have it because you have to find the joy in the work, even when it's hard, right? Because there's so many lessons and opportunities that you get, even in the roles that you don't love, that you bring to your next thing.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And that brings up a good point that I wanted to talk to you about because we mentioned your earlier endeavors in school, and then you kind of transitioned, right? You left that sort of space of law and transitioned into sort of this startup space. So talk to us about how you went from law to startup and sort of the business world.
I do it as minimal coughing as I can. It's a very juicy story, okay?
Okay.
So I'm working in politics, and that was the first time that I really loved what I did. And people say they love their jobs. Like I literally would sleep on my boss's couch so that I would be there when he woke up. His wife would feed him, send him out to me, and we would go campaigning. Like,
oh wow,
I would get out of an event so late that it was pointless. You know what I mean? And I was really cool with his wife. Actually, I think I liked his wife better, but he was great. But I really loved her.
I'll tell him that.
He was amazing. But like I was friendly with her. And so many nights we would work so late, I would literally just like pass him on their couch. He'd wake up, eat his food or whatever. She would send him out and we'd just hit the road again. And I just propelled by passion and love for that community. They're just completely unmatched. And so I loved what I did, but my dad ran for office and he ran against my boss. And my dad won and I lost my job. Okay. Back in those days, I think it was quite frowned upon to work for your father if he was an elected official. Some women don't seem to mind, but I think it's unethical. So I stepped down. It was kind of my dad's to shine, a time to shine, and not to spend a lot of time on him, but he broke like a lot of barriers. He became the first independent of any race or ethnicity elected to the House. First Dominican to ever serve in the House of Representatives in Massachusetts. He was getting like a lot of attention and doing great.
Let's talk about for dad.
Right. And I was just like not my moment. You know what I mean? And I did feel like it could have been a huge distraction to like have your child work. It was all like weirdness. Mm-hmm. So I stepped down and I went and worked for another legislator who represented a district that was very similar to Lawrence, a place called Chelsea, a lot of Latino immigrants. And it wasn't a fit for me. I went from kind of being the boss really, really young and really owning kind of that like chief of staff role to being like one person on a bigger staff. And it wasn't necessarily that I needed to be the top dog. It just almost felt like going backwards in my career. Mm-hmm. So we mutually parted. I'm actually still really cool with that, a former legislator, but I gave public service one more try. Okay. So I go to the Executive Office of Health and Human Services when Mitt Romney was laying the foundation for the Affordable Care Act. Mm-hmm. And I learned that I find healthcare policy incredibly fascinating from a perspective of how it serves us as people. Mm-hmm. But it is not my life's work. Oh my goodness, no. Like I'm like a very animated person. I was like in a cubicle dying. I was like dying. It was awful.
Right. But that's a good lesson, right? Some people would get in that situation and they would just stay. But for you to realize that it wasn't you and to change.
And I was young. I'll tell you the part of the story I don't often share, which was when I started that job, the woman who was my boss was Latina and brilliant. And so, you know, when people are so authentically themselves that you're just drawn to them, this woman was so brilliant and capable and so unapologetically herself that I was like, you know what? She's why I'm here, right? Just a leader you wanted to be around. And she left.
Gotcha.
And the woman who replaced her was the polar opposite. She was a woman who very much felt like she had to behave like a man to be taken seriously, which wasn't her authentic self. And I'm very repulsed by that. Like, if you're not going to be you and I can never know the real you, how do we work together well?
Right.
But the lesson that I took from that is that was the experience that taught me the kind of boss I want to be and the kind of boss I never want to be. And that's not to say that this woman was bad in any way. She's actually had a stellar career. She's also brilliant. It was just that I saw the value of being myself at work, and I just could never be any different. So she and I didn't mesh, and I was just like, bye. And it was probably showing my age, but I didn't know how to get a job outside of politics. So I started temping.
Okay.
Which I don't even know if that's a thing anymore. So I'm temping, and I was an executive assistant or something, or manager assistant at Bain & Company, management consulting firm, very prestigious. And I'm like, this seems like a super cool job. Like, these people solve complex problems. They're traveling. They have this amazing prestige because of this, you know, incredible company that's been around forever, solving some of the biggest companies in the world issues. Like, this is what I want to do. So I remember my boss like pulled me in, and now a very good friend pulls me in for my performance review, and he's giving me an assistant performance review. And he's like, okay, you've done really great. I just want to talk about, you know, the few times, you know, there've been a couple of issues with my seat on the flights. And I was just like, respectfully, I don't want to do this as a career. And I know that I'm doing a good job, and you needed to find a couple things to tell me so you could give me constructive criticism. Like, this just isn't it for me. And he was like, oh, okay. Well, what do you want to do? And I was like, I want to do what you do. And he was like, all right, well, here's what you need to do.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. He's like, you need to finish school and go get an MBA from like a top business school. And I'm like, done. So I started doing the circuit. I was getting ready to graduate, and I ended up at Carnegie Mellon's Tepper School of Business 13 years ago, almost to the day. And I met my husband there because he was looking to get his MBA. I dropped out of undergrad, quit Bain, moved to Vermont, got pregnant, started working in defense, got married, and became an influencer.
You became an influencer.
So we're working in Vermont, and I had to get a job, right? Like, I was like 26 or something.
Okay.
And this is like my first private sector job outside of like temping. And there's not much to do in Vermont in terms of businesses. There's maybe like 5 big companies. And so General Dynamics is a big defense company. When I tell you I have literally like zero interest in that industry, like, it's less than zero. Like, I don't want weapons of mass destruction that are like, like I'm good.
Right.
Not a values alignment.
Right.
But when you're that young, like, you do what you do. So my husband and I are working there. We're building our careers, and we're, you know, just doing what we're told. But we're pretty smart people. We're like, it doesn't appear, there's 3 things. Number one, the future of warfare is not boots on the ground, like combat. And we were working in like large scale, like guns and things.
Gotcha.
Secondly, Vermont is an expensive place to have a company, right? So we're like, how likely is it that this like giant, you know, I think Fortune 100 or whatever it is, company is going to keep this random outpost in one of the most expensive places in the country?
Right.
And then lastly, we both just felt like we were destined for just much more. So he got into Cornell's business school, which was my top choice, but he got it. So I went with my babies, and I lived in a 600 square foot dorm with a 6-month-old, I think, and a 20-month-old at the time. And I became
what? 600 square feet with 2 kids. Okay.
2 kids, 14 months apart.
Oh gosh. Wow.
Right. So when you see me on the struggle bus, know that it's been like, this is nothing. So we go to Cornell, which is incredible. Ithaca, New York was beautiful, but that was the first time since I was 14 years old that I didn't have a job.
Wow.
And that was tough because I never saw myself as a stay-at-home mom. And it wasn't because I thought there was anything wrong with that. It was like what I said earlier in the interview. I didn't even know stay-at-home moms growing up. Like my mom worked in a factory.
Right.
Like, who does that? Like, how do you eat?
Right.
And so I'm in this dorm with these two beautiful but very loud and demanding children. And I need an outlet. And I remember how this happened. I was on Twitter. Twitter was like almost brand new. And I was on Twitter talking trash about something. And someone was like, "You're funny. You should blog." I'm like, "What's the blog?" And they were like, "Oh my God, like you just write like Twitter, but like more words." And I was like, "I can do that. I can do that." So this is when mon blogging was starting to pick up. And I did fairly well, I would guess, for like the effort that I put in. I was featured in a national commercial with my daughter. CNN like reached out to me. Yeah, I did pretty well.
Wait, what? Okay, can we say what commercial? Because I need to find this commercial.
It's an Oric commercial. I'll send it, and then it's very funny.
Okay.
It's a steam cleaner, and they came out to the dorm, and they had my daughter drawing on the floor, and then I'm like steam mopping it up.
Oh, that is too funny. Okay, we have a superstar here. Okay.
My stories with commercials is I always find my way into a commercial. But I mean, I did fairly well. But I don't know if you remember this, but like at this time, a lot of white women were blowing up and they were calling it like mommy blogging. And it was this very confessional style blogging where people were being either very authentic and transparent about struggles with like infertility or depression or postpartum, whatever it was. And then other people who were just like kind of doing it because that was the wave and it was getting attention. Again, I knew it wasn't my lane and I wasn't about to put all sorts of I guess I'm also kind of boring. I didn't really have anything juicy to share. But like my dad is an elected official. My husband's out like interviewing to be an investment banker and all these other things. It's just, I always kept it a little reserved. It wasn't my career path, but I did well. We went abroad. I was able to help pay for a semester at London School of Economics. So brought the family to London, kept blogging, and my husband graduated. And he was like, "Thank you so much for supporting me. That was exceptionally hard to do. It was so hard, Erika. Oh my goodness, it was hard taking care of those two kids."
In looking back, was there any learning that you took from starting the blog and being a stay-at-home mom during that time?
I think I learned that I can survive anything. Honestly, those were, I wouldn't say dark days, but they were trying. They were very trying. It was just like a 12, 14-hour day with no other adults, alone with two little kids in a tiny space where I didn't know anyone. I don't think I had a driver's license back then either. I didn't drive.
Right. Okay.
Lonely, And so I think honestly, it did two things. It really just reinforced you made it through this, you can pretty much do anything. And then also it forced me to get good at things that I did not know I was naturally gifted at, which is storytelling, writing stuff that makes money, taking really great photos that people, connect with, like all those things that are the foundation, right? Now I'm kind of a big girl marketer, but when you're really getting started, those things matter a lot. So I would say that was really the lesson learned, is it forced me to hunker down and get good.
Okay. So it was a positive thing that came out of those dark days.
So many positives for my husband's career, for our families. I think for the kids, think of me being the daughter of two immigrants who worked in a factory, than to be the mother of two children that were pretty much born on an Ivy League campus.
Yeah, right? Complete difference. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a privilege. It was difficult because again, my dad's not like a count or something where I lived in some amazing off-campus housing. But to be able to really propel the family forward in that way was a gift.
Gotcha. Okay. So now your husband got his MBA, and then what happened with you?
he had a job offer from Eli Lilly that he got at like the National Black MBA conference or some amazing event. And from day one, I was like, Indiana sounds compelling. And he's like, what? Why? I'm like, I don't know. I just think that these people wanted to extend a job offer to you before you stepped foot on campus. That's pretty powerful, right? And so 2 years later, he graduates, and where do we go? We go to Indiana, Eli Lilly. So he says to me, thank you, go do whatever you want. And I was like, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna go back to school, I'm gonna get a job in procurement, I'm gonna get an MBA, and I'm gonna become a consultant. And he's like, you literally don't like any of the things that consultants do. Like you hate those, he's like, you hate building decks, you don't even like traveling for work. He's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, well, what else am I supposed to do? And he says to me, you're a marketer. And I'm like, what is a marketer? He's like, what you've been doing for 2 years. I didn't even know that what I was doing was marketing. Mm-hmm. So I applied for a job as a social media manager. I walk in, I meet this guy, Chris, and he'll come in later. He's now like one of my closest friends. And he's like, you're too qualified for this job. I'm like, I've been sitting in a dorm covered in like baby spit for 2 years. Like, what are you talking about? He's like, no, you're I've never been told I'm too qualified. I'm like, this is amazing. Thank you.
Right.
So I was offered 2 jobs. And so I took this one. It was associate channel manager for Target brands. So I worked for a wholesale paper party conglomerate that produced paper goods that you have probably used a million times in your life without knowing. And my only client was Target. And so I oversaw all of the seasonal programs. I think it was like $50 million worth. So if you went to Target today and you saw the end cap with the pumpkin shaped plate, that's probably Hoffmaster Creative Converting. It might even be a mold that I worked on. So I took that job and I loved it.
Gotcha. What was it about that job that you really loved?
Target.
Like, you got a discount at Target, that would be even more.
Well, I wasn't a Target employee, so I didn't have perks. No. This is another instance of instinct where I did not know it, but I'm very much a consumer focused person. I'm super into understanding triggers that make me first. Like if I watch a commercial and the commercial it compels me to take an action, a normal person would just take the action and forget about it. I will dwell on it for days and say like, why did that inspire me to like look up that website and look more and learn more? Or why have I visited the website 3 times but not purchased yet? Like I just get really into trying to understand these journeys. And so I think instinctively I knew that, you know, that Target branding is strong and nobody's serving their guests better in mass retail than Target, in my opinion. So I loved that job, but I had a big win pretty quickly. And I learned, you know, it's a very formulaic job because Target would tell the supplier, this is what we want, here's when we want it. So I did a few cycles of that and I was like, I'm bored, what's next? So I moved back to the other side of the building to work for the guy who told me I was too qualified for the first job. Okay. So he hired me to be a product manager and digital marketing manager of 2 e-com properties. One was B2B called napkins.com and the other one was direct to consumer called partypail.com. So napkins still exists. It was cases of like cutlery and napkins that you would sell to like a restaurateur. And Party Pail was for like a mom in the Midwest who wanted to spend $50 or less on her child's first birthday with a Mickey Mouse theme. Because paper, right? So paper is always a theme. And that's just where I fell in love with e-commerce. That's when I really became a digital marketer and I understood the difference between like a B2B sale online versus a direct to consumer sale. I loved working for Chris. Chris was the kind of boss who would just tell you like, you're brilliant, I'm leaving, like you've got it under control, call me if you need guidance, like really gave you autonomy, but also like endless support when you needed it. Right. So I loved it. I had a really good time.
That's awesome. That's awesome. When you have those types of bosses, you're able to grow so much and just gain so many new skills that you didn't have before because they give you that autonomy.
I credit him with a lot. I had a difficult time in that organization. You know, no one will ever explicitly say like, you're not getting promoted because you're Black. But there were just all of these really interesting signs at that organization. He's a white guy, by the way, a white, like homegrown Indiana guy who was my number one ally. Like I had I had a colleague text me one Friday night. I will never forget this. And she said to me, I wish that you could hear what I'm hearing right now. Your boss is in an office with a vice president literally yelling. And this is not a man who yells.
Wow.
Talking about how unfairly you've been treated and how you have earned this promotion and how wrong they are for doing what they're doing. She's like, she's like, I'm actually like moved. And I wish you could hear it. Like, this man is your advocate.
Wow.
And, I never forgot that. And it was, so I left because I got my promotion and I got my raise. But I mean, I'm not in the business of turning around like a racist organization. Like, I've got stuff to do.
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately, it wasn't it just wasn't vibing for me. It wasn't, this is a really core part of how I ended up at startups, was to them, good enough was enough.
Mm.
It was never any like, well, we made 20 million on this program last year, but if we try this, we might make 50. Why don't we go for it?
Mm-hmm.
Let's like rally up these talented people and really get them fired up and do something, because we're going to be sitting around for 9 hours or more a day. Like, why can't it be fun? Or why can't we feel like we're on a mission,
Gotcha.
And that's how I live. And they were just very much like, clock out at 5 and we're done. And I was just like, I want more. So we dipped. My husband and I left the Midwest.
Okay, so that's how you transition into startups. So that's interesting. And I was wondering how a startup may be different, like just from a mentality wise, from a corporation versus being an entrepreneur, just a single entrepreneur. And I think that helps sort of clarify that. Was there something that when you went into the startup space that you weren't expecting? So there's more than one thing.
Like the first interview where a guest gets like sued or something.
No.
I'm like, Hoffmaster, you were kind of racist. Come, like, we can talk about it. But I think there's a lot that I learned. The first is it doesn't work like this. It's not startups good, big companies bad. Like, that's the number one lesson I learned. There's a lot of romanticism around startups. And when I joined Lovepop, it was the second time in my life where I felt that feeling of like loving my job more than anything in the world. Like, oh my God, I loved that job. And my husband didn't have that feeling until recently. And I just always I felt so badly for anyone who didn't know what it was like to love their job. And I adored it. I loved everything about it. In hindsight, okay, and this isn't to take away from the experience at all. Loved my time there. Love that company. I actually just placed an order today. I have like a photo, my parting gift they gave me on my mantle with a Lovepop. It's a really big part of my DNA, and I'm a very big part of its DNA, whether either one of us likes it or not. I left my heart at that place. But I learned a lot of things. Number one, don't treat a company like it's yours unless it is. Because at the end of the day, it becomes $1 billion company. They're only going to talk about John and Mommy. Not going to talk about Veronica.
Right.
Early employees, or the people who by now who've been there longer than me. They don't. It's just about John and Mommy. That's their company, and that's not to say you shouldn't work hard. But I sacrificed like I would have sacrificed for my own, and I will never do that again. Okay. So like, that's a big lesson. Find a good lawyer to review your compensation when equity is involved. Learn that.
Gotcha.
Learn that.
A good tip.
Yeah, that's important. If you're watching this, you're like, where do I find a lawyer to do that? I will literally connect you with an amazing, he's a man, he's Black, awesome dude. Okay. Those are 2 lessons. And the third is, they're all different. All startups are different. So that would be the third lesson. So I've been involved with many. And so I went from Lovepop to another startup that I won't name, that I got out of quickly, but not as quickly as I should have. So very dysfunctional leadership team, selling a product that wasn't fully formed. And so I guess I'd leave it with, there are a lot of people out there that just don't know what a startup is. So I'm going to tell people a startup isn't just a new business. A startup isn't like, oh, we haven't figured it out, so we're just going to make a bunch of mistakes. Like a startup is a high growth company that has the potential to be $1 billion or bigger or acquired, right? The whole point of a startup is to grow aggressively and quickly. So I joined this company, and ultimately I realized that I was driving the majority of the performance, and there were numerous founders there, and it was going to happen again where I'm like, I'm just going to build someone else's company again. And it was just an uneven level of effort and expertise. And I think there was a part of, there was a point in my life where I would probably not say stuff like that publicly, but I feel so comfortable doing that right now. It's like, prove me wrong. Like, I'm so comfortable. Like, here's where you were before me and here's where you were after me. We can talk about it all day if you know who I'm talking about, if you want to watch this. But yeah, I just learned they're not all the same. And I guess I said there were 3 lessons, but there's one more that hit me really hard was I thought that I just really, really loved Lovepop, and I did. But what it was is I didn't know better. Like when you're in love with someone and they're like terrible, but you don't know yet, and you're just having such a good time, and you're always like, why couldn't I feel like that all the time? No, you don't want to feel like that all the time because you felt like that because you didn't know what was going on, right? And so that was kind of what happened with me, and not in like a, bad things happen or I was taken advantage of, nothing like that, but like, now that I can reflect on it, what is it? Oh my God, 5 years later, I wasn't living a healthy life. Like I was waking up at 4:30 in the morning, going to the gym. It's probably in the office by like 6:30. Then I would work till, I don't know, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, like crazy stuff. I wouldn't see my kid. Like when we were getting ready for Sharktank, I think there was a whole week I didn't see my kids in the morning or at night, which is crazy.
Wow.
So it's not necessarily, I think I was just chasing a high that I was never going to have again because I knew better. I learned you have you and no one is going to look out for you the way that you can. Like, I'm sorry, there's no white boy that's running a startup in America who's going to be like, hey, Veronica, I think you're working too hard. I'm going to pay you your market rate, and I'm also going to increase your equity because when I looked at the cap table, you're actually making less than all the white dudes. They're not going to do that. It's just not.
Yeah.
And so I think I just had a lot of like innocence when I joined there, which is like kind of sad because I was definitely a grown ass woman. But I'm a trying person.
Yeah.
So that's all there is. I love startups. I keep doing it over and over again. It's just I'm a way different person than I was in 2015. Hey, Veronica, you want to join our startup? You're gonna pay $40,000, which doesn't even cover the cost of your daughter's private childcare. We're a bunch of like unwatched dudes from business school you've never met before. You join in? Yeah, hell yeah, I'm coming. You say that to me now, I'll be like, call my husband, like, get these guys out of here. Like, absolutely not. No.
That's funny. And I'm glad you broke down startup because I was one of those people that had the misconception about a startup just being, hey, we had this idea and it's a startup. But
I mean, some people would say I'm like totally wrong, but because there is like a really good definition out there. I used to think it was very much like a venture-backed high-growth company is typically how I look at it. And it's not to make the distinction to be like elitist or like classist or something like that. It's that from a person who's like done big company, done small business, the distinction is important because the expectations and the output and the timelines are all very different.
Okay, gotcha. So now you talked about when you were at these other companies, how much you were working and how much time you were spending in the office, but now you seem to have a better handle on that. How, you say you don't, Veronica?
I don't. It's just that I'm not doing it for them. I'm doing it for, yeah. I don't want to lie. You hear me with Corona.
I love it.
You can't say that to your audience. We can't be like, Veronica has good work-life balance. Veronica is sitting in the office at 7:16 with the Rona talking to Erika, trying not to sound like a frog. I don't. The difference is I'm doing it for me.
Okay. Got you. That is too funny.
I don't get up at 4:30. Okay. I'll leave it here.
Okay.
I don't get up at 4:30 anymore. Because I do think that was a toxic behavior that I had. Maybe. I used to get so much done though. I started prioritizing my sleep.
Okay.
So that's big. I didn't drink a ton back then, but compared to now, I guess it would be. I don't drink, which helps with the sleep. So like I've made some lifestyle changes, but ultimately you're still gonna have really long days. And if you want to be an entrepreneur, like that. But when you're doing it for yourself, it's such a different feeling than when you're doing it to make other people rich.
Right, right. No, and I don't I'm not perfect at my work-life balance. Like, so I'm right there with you. I can't get up at 4:30. I'm sorry. I can't.
It's gross.
I'm a 6 o'clock girl. But like even beyond that, you may have the sleep done. And then for me, it's like nutrition starts to fall off. So I think we're always trying to battle and balance something in our lives to make it work,
I don't think I've had a vegetable today. Oh wait, I had seaweed.
Now you got me thinking. Does spinach on a pizza count? Yeah.
That counts like 3,000%. Are you crazy?
That's the only vegetable I had.
Wow, I'm impressed.
We won't say how many slices of pizza I had, though.
It's more vegetables.
Okay, we're gonna go with that.
I feel like we need to do this once a week. I feel great.
Oh gosh. Okay, so tell us about where you are now in life in your business.
So towards the end of my tenure at Lovepop, I'm gonna spare you this very long story.
Okay.
But during the mom blogging times, I was offered the opportunity to do like this stuff didn't used to have a name, right? So I was basically an influencer. I went on a cruise with my family. I photographed it. Through that, I met this advertising guy because he was one of the bloggers' husbands. And I was in this Microsoft commercial with John and Wambi from Lovepop that like everyone in the world saw 3 years ago now. Crazy. And he reached out to me. And he's like a big time New York like advertising guy. And he's like, I want to work with you guys. Like I love Lovepop's story. Like I just want to work with good people. And I'm like, this would be amazing, Ultimately, even though we were much bigger at this point, we didn't have like $1 million for an advertising budget. You know what I mean?
In your back pocket.
Right. Like even a startup that's doing like $50 million in revenue or whatever, $1 million put into acquisition. I know how many customers that'll bring me. $1 million into advertising. We're not Coca-Cola. I can't just like sprinkle it around. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I had to decline, but he put me in touch with one of his team members who said to me, these were her exact words. And I think you know her. You need to meet Lynn Power. She's a boss bitch. And I was like, yeah, that's an endorsement.
Yeah, we've had Lynn on the show.
Okay. So they said to me, you need to meet Lynn. So at that time, Lynn Power was stepping down as CEO of J. Walter Thompson. Mm-hmm. And she was going out on her own. And so basically I was going to get this amazing advertiser to work with me for, it was like nominal cost, like $10,000 or $20,000. I was like, a woman like that at a discount, sign me up for whatever reason. And because you've talked to Lynn, I think you'll understand something about her made me really comfortable. And I was really open with her. Mm-hmm. She called me up to review the proposal. And I said, I'm going to do it, but I don't want to talk about it. And she was like, what? I'm like, I don't feel like talking about it. I'm like, I'm sorry. I was in such a low place career-wise. It was the end of my tenure at Lovepop, and I felt incredibly like undervalued, under pressure. It was just a really tough time. And I wouldn't normally share that with a person I barely know, but for whatever reason I did. Mm-hmm. And she was like, I think I have something for you. Come to my house.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I don't know this woman, mind you. Where are we going? So we drive 2.5 hours away. We're going to a stranger's house. It was freaky. I get there, gorgeous house, beautiful people, lovely. She goes through this whole presentation about how this island, Dominica, is being threatened by climate change and how there's an opportunity to create a luxury brand that really raises awareness of these issues, about how climate really is tied to luxury, because if the climate destroys this gorgeous place, we lose a luxurious vacation destination. But more importantly, people lose their livelihoods. We lose bees, which we need to live. Like all these things are interconnected. So there's like the fun part, which is like luxurious products. But the important part, which is like, if you want to have luxury, you actually need to be alive. So you need bees, and people need jobs, like core things, Uh-huh. she's walking me through this, and I assumed, because a lot of people reach out to me for like customer acquisition advice and stuff. So I'm like, oh my God, you got to do this. This is amazing. And she gets to the end and she's like, do you want to be the CEO? I'm like, what? Like, why me? Like, it was it took me probably like a year to really accept it.
Really?
Yeah. Even though I was working on it.
Oh.
I was working on it, but I didn't really tell anyone. I was just kind of like, they'll find somebody like more experienced or whatever. Cause I was just beat up, Erika. Like I got beat up at startups. And that's part of why I love them. So I don't want to, sound like I'm like, downing them. But part of being at a really great startup is that you are surrounded by so many brilliant people that you always feel inferior. And part of that is very intoxicating because you're always leveling up to match each other, and you know what I mean, and just get better and better. The dark side of that is you walk away from that pretty broken if you don't address it when it's happening. And I've seen it happen to other people too. So my self-esteem was just like in the gutter. But I did it, and I would do it nights and weekends, and just spent two years developing, a line of luxury home fragrance products that are clean, non-toxic. And it sounds super basic, but it's actually really hard. Most candles today, even the ones that are soy, release toxins into the air that are either carcinogenic.
Wait, I was doing good with the soy candle.
Well, so soy burns cleaner, but a lot of soy includes palm oil, which is causing a lot of wide-scale deforestation. Gotcha. And so a lot of people don't know that. And so I didn't want any palm oil products. And so creating a candle that could hold luxury fragrance, but also be mostly beeswax and then palm oil free and paraffin free was really hard. And then our vessels that the candles are poured into are handmade, and they glow from the inside out when they burn. So there's levels upon levels of luxury. But that's what I've been doing for now the last 2.5 years.
Gotcha. And you know what I love about the candle though, because I was reading up on it, is that I think it said you have, it's not that you can refill it. It's something about, I can't even think what it is. It's not a subscription.
Like repurposing it.
Okay. So, that's what it is.
Here's what I'm going to do though. I'm going to send you a candle because you deserve it for listening to this voice. Oh. But if it's okay, like I would love to share a code because I never do this. Okay. But I would like to share a code just for everyone who's listening and watching, if that's okay.
Yes, that's awesome. Thank you.
Let me think of one because I have to make it. So Dr. Erika candle.
I love it. I love it.
I'll make the code by the time this airs, it'll be okay. Good. But it's the candle was really the first product, it's an expensive product. It costs $125, and that was really intentional.
But it smells amazing. Like I've been able to, Veronica did send me something, so I do want to share it with you guys. And it's so cute in the packaging that it comes like a little box. Yeah, like that. And it's a little smell. What do you call this, Veronica?
Those are our scent coins, and I'm gonna make it so you can use the code on that too if you want.
It smells so good, and it just smells good. Thank you. Even with the box closed, I can smell it.
The woman who developed this fragrance, the woman on our team, is the world's leading scent marketer. She's been in the Harvard Business Review. She's done some of the world's biggest brands. Like the scent is without a doubt incredibly luxurious, but it was about, I wanted to attack the luxury candle market, and also people who think like a candle is as simple as just pouring stuff. Like you're breathing these things. It is the last frontier, right? We've had this movement in the clean beauty industry where everybody is like, well, what's in it? Are you using fragrances? How does this react with my kind of skin? Like the consumers are so inspiring because they're demanding this information. And then we have these things we're burning and breathing and nobody knows what's in them. And I challenge you, you can ask Diptyque, what's in that candle? And they're charging people $76 and up, $250 for the big ones, I think. They won't tell you. They won't tell you. And it's a paraffin candle. Paraffin is like it's a byproduct of petroleum gas, So, I felt like if we are going to offer luxury should do no harm. There should be no deforestation. Luxury shouldn't throw carcinogens into the air in your home. It shouldn't throw soot onto your walls, right?
Mhm.
Luxury should be reusable. It's a beautiful like art piece that you can reuse again, and we're working on the refills. Luxury should be something that makes a statement. You want to flex on a Zoom call, like you want a gorgeous like candle that's glowing. Like I want to provide people with a luxury experience, but I want to challenge all of these other people on what luxury truly means. Like, how can you call yourself luxury when you're not putting care into every single element of something as intimate as something that we breathe, right? And I sound like really mad professor about it, but it irks me because I stopped burning candles when I became a mom. I was like, I don't know what's in these things. And I have an infant in the house and I don't know what's in it. I'm not going to risk it. And so just irritates me. They won't tell you what's in it, but they'll take your like $200. I'm like, well, I'm going to charge $125 and I'm going to tell, and because I'm going to make the finest candle in the world. I believe this is the best candle in the world, but I'm going to tell you why this is worth $125.
I love it. I love the fact that I think a lot of entrepreneurs, even startups, like having the product, but also having the backstory and the philanthropy and things behind it to give back to communities. I think that is a big thing that a lot of people may be missing out on, in terms of not just being a product, but being a service, if that makes any sense to the community.
It does. I mean, we have beehives and the whole like Dominica story is confusing because I'm Dominican and people from Dominica are Dominican too, but I'm not from there. But there's kinship, right? It's the Caribbean. We're called Dominicans. But the point was like, when there's a catastrophic climate event, which they're getting more frequent and more intense because of climate change, beekeepers lose their livelihood. Dominican beekeepers weren't able to replenish their supplies of bees, for a hot minute after Hurricane Maria. I want to say we were there like a year or two later and we were still working on that. They're still working on that. So what we started doing was we built our own hives, hired Dominican beekeepers to tend to them. We've got beehives in the Berkshires too, because it's one thing to create a beautiful product, but for me, I care about the imprint that product leaves on the world. And people can say it's BS, and I'm sure there's a counterpoint somewhere. I welcome it. It's okay. But I do believe that I'm doing something that's highly beneficial because I can see the people that it's affecting. And can I stop climate change with luxury home products? Like, I don't know. I hope so. But I can at least contribute positively to the bee population, to the people, especially the Black people who are tending to bees. There's a lot of Black beekeepers and their stories need to be told, right? So I can do some things while I'm offering a really amazing product and hopefully scaling to a $1 billion company because I'm trying to be the next Yankee.
And that ties in like the story of your beginning story of how you want to impact communities and why you worked in the areas that you worked in, and now bringing in your marketing and acquisition skill set. It's kind of like the perfect marriage of both right now.
You see, and like you don't plan it. You don't plan for this amazing CEO woman to pull you aside and be like, "Hey, you want to be CEO of my company?"
Right.
And then to have that proposal align so well with a personal pain point that I had, which is I love candles, but I don't trust them and I don't use them. I'm from the Caribbean. My family's from the Caribbean. I care deeply about it, right? And also just stuff.
Right.
I never shop, which is why this is like a really funny story. Is like I'm an underbuyer because I feel really guilty about contributing to like landfill waste, and I just don't like having things everywhere. But when I do buy, I will invest in things that I love and matter and last, right?
Right.
So I figured there's got to be other people out there like me who are like, hell yeah, I want the best candle in the world. Why not?
Yes, that smells amazing. Oh my gosh. I can't believe that the time has gone by so quickly.
You really earned your candle.
I what?
You really earned your candle.
Oh, thank you. I love candles too, right? Like I'm such a candle whore. Oh my gosh.
Everyone who's watching us, thank you all so much for bearing with the coughing.
Yes. Well, I won't hold you too much longer for your voice, but we usually do a Fab Four, but I'm gonna do a quick one for you because I know you're struggling with your voice.
Okay.
So it's just a question that I ask people at the end. And so I want to know from you, Veronica, if you had to pick one song to represent your life, what would that song be?
Don't judge me. I mean, I know this, like, I don't even know.
Oh, you know it like off the back of your hand?
I do.
Okay.
It's Won't Back Down by Tom Petty. He's from Indiana, actually, I believe. Yeah.
Ah, okay.
I did a podcast with my friend, and he was so taken aback because I said I'm like a cockroach, which most people consider like a horrible insult. But I'm like, no, I believe that I could survive like a nuclear holocaust.
Okay, I can see that.
I believe that. I believe that deeply. And having gotten to where I am with a lot of the stuff that I've overcome or dealt with or witnessed, a lot of the stuff I mentioned on the podcast, I think is a miracle. And I try to do my best to honor the good fortune that I have to be here. And so I think that song's really representative of my journey and so many other people's journeys, right? A lot of us really hustled to get to where we are.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. I love it. Veronica, thank you, thank you, thank you. Where can they find Ildenature?
Ildenature.com, ISLEDENATURE.com. You can find me pretty easily on the internet. Please don't hesitate to reach out with any questions, and I'm going to make that code live. Would love to hear your thoughts on the scent coin or candle. I'm just so thankful for this opportunity, Erika.
Okay. Thank you for having me. Thank you for being here.
I'm taking it over. The lady with the bad lighting and the bad voice.
It's all good. It's all good. It's all good. So thank you again, Veronica. Thank you guys for watching. I will have all Veronica's details in the show notes, so don't worry, I got you. If you missed any of the other shows, please head over to drerikabydesign.com to catch all the shows that you did miss. And we will see you next time. Bye.